The notification came through at 4047 on a Tuesday afternoon, and I had to read it 3 times before it felt real. Senior Financial Analyst, promoted to Finance Manager, effective immediately. I was standing in the elevator bank on the 14th floor of our downtown Austin office building, my laptop bag half falling off my shoulder, a cold cup of coffee in my hand that I'd forgotten to drink for the last 2 hours. My manager, Teresa, had just walked me out of her office with a handshake so firm it surprised me, and she'd said, "You've been carrying this team for 2 years. It was time we made it official." The equity package alone was more than my father had made in any single year of his working life. I texted my husband the moment the elevator doors closed. Just 6 words, I got it, I'm a manager. I watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Then, knees. What's for dinner? I stared at that for a long time as the lobby doors opened onto the late Texas heat. I told myself he was just distracted. He was probably elbow deep in some project. That was just how he communicated, abbreviated, efficient. It didn't mean anything. I drove home with the radio too loud and the windows down and a smile on my face that I refused to let anyone, even myself, take away. He was on the back porch when I got home, beer in hand, watching a game on the outdoor TV I'd bought him for his birthday. I pushed through the sliding glass door and said his name. He turned and gave me that easy half grin I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. "Finance manager," I said. "I officially run the team now. More money, better title, and Teresa said she's grooming me for director within 18 months. "That's great, babe." He turned back to the game, raised his beer like a toast without looking at me. "You're going to be tired all the time, though. You already work like 100 hours a week." "That's an exaggeration." I set my bag down on the patio table. "I thought we could go out, celebrate." "It's game night." He said it simply, matter-of-factly, the way you'd remind someone of a standing law of physics. I ordered wings. They should be here in like 20. I went inside, changed out of my work clothes, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat at the kitchen island by myself in our big quiet house and told myself it was fine. It was not fine, but I didn't know that yet, not fully. I was still explaining him to myself, the way you do when you love someone and you don't want to look at the shape of what's in front of you. My husband and I had been together since I was 26. I was 31 now, and for most of that time, I'd been the one pushing forward, finishing my MBA at night while working full-time, taking on extra projects, saying yes to things that scared me. He worked in commercial real estate, good money when the market cooperated, which it hadn't lately. He'd had a dry spell the last 14 months. Not his fault, he said. The market was weird. The economy was doing a thing. He was working on a deal that was going to be huge, just needed a little more time. 14 months is a long time to wait on a huge deal. But I paid the mortgage and I didn't say much about it because we were a team. That's what I believed. The thing about my husband's mother is that she is not a subtle woman. She had an opinion about everything and offered it continuously, freely, like a public service. She'd never loved me the way she loved the idea of her son, which meant she'd never quite loved me at all. But she was family, and I'd spent 6 years managing her with patience I'd had to manufacture from scratch every single time I saw her. His sister was 27 and lived like she was perpetually between chapters of her life, between jobs, between apartments, between the version of herself she was currently performing and the next one she was about to become. She was charming when she needed something and scarce when she didn't. 3 weeks after my promotion, my husband sat me down at the kitchen table on a Sunday morning with the particular posture of a man who has rehearsed what he's about to say. His mother's landlord had sold the building. She had 60 days. His sister had been let go from her 3rd job in 2 years. A marketing agency, downsized. She couldn't cover her rent in Dallas on severance alone. Okay, I said carefully. That's really hard. What are they thinking? Family nearby they can lean on? He looked at me steadily. They have us. I set down my coffee mug. We have the guest room, he said, and your home office. I know you use it, but you could work from the bedroom or the dining table for a while. Mom could take the guest room. Sis could use the office. For how long? Until they get back on their feet. What does that mean, concretely? A month? 3 months? Is there a plan? He shifted. You can't put a deadline on family. The words dropped into the conversation like a stone into still water. That's not a plan, I said. That's a feeling. I need to know what the expectation is, because this is my home too, and I work from that office 3 days a week, and you just got a raise. His voice was patient in a way that was starting to feel condescending. You just told me you're making more money than ever. This isn't going to break us financially. You can work from the bedroom. It's temporary. You're making a decision about my home and my workspace without asking me. I'm asking you right now. No, you're informing me and framing it as a question. He got quiet in the way he did when he felt criticized, that careful, neutral quiet that meant the conversation was effectively over without being officially ended. They're my family, he said. I can't let them struggle when we have space. I took a breath. I want to help them. I do. But I need us to make a real plan, a timeline, an agreement about how this works. I can't just open-ended commit to. I already told them they could come. The room contracted around those words. You already told them. Last week, I was going to bring it up sooner, but you've been so slammed at work. He had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, but not enough. They're coming next Saturday. Mom said she'd cook. It'll be fine. You'll see. I think I went very still the way a person does when something they'd suspected but refused to fully examine suddenly comes into full, undeniable focus. He hadn't consulted me, hadn't asked, had made a decision about our home, our daily lives, my workspace, and had considered it close enough to decided that telling me was a formality. I want you to call them, I said. I want you to tell them we need a few more days to figure out logistics. I'm not doing that. It would humiliate my mother. And this doesn't humiliate me? No one is doing anything to you. His voice sharpened. You're being dramatic. This is literally family sleeping in a guest room, not some crime. You've always had a problem with my mother. This is that. I didn't answer. I got up, rinsed my mug, and went for a long walk around the neighborhood until my hands stopped shaking. His mother and his sister arrived the following Saturday with 3 carloads of belongings. I stood in my own living room and watched them carry boxes past me like I was holding open a door at a hotel. His mother surveyed my kitchen with a look that managed to be both approving and proprietary, opened my refrigerator without asking, and said something had to be moved around to accommodate the way she organized things. His sister had claimed my office within 20 minutes, cheerfully stacking my work files onto the hallway floor, saying she worked better with a door. I moved my files into the bedroom closet. I set up my laptop on the dining room table. I came home from work that Thursday to find his mother seated at my dining table working on a puzzle, and she looked up and said, "Oh, I didn't realize you needed this space," in a tone that made clear she did not consider this her problem. He saw my face that night and said, "Give it a week. She'll find her rhythm." By the 3rd week, I was waking up in the middle of the night with a low, persistent dread, the kind that doesn't announce itself as one specific thing, but exists just underneath the surface of everything. I'd lie there listening to my house, the sounds of other people in it, the sounds of my home that no longer felt like mine, and I'd think, how did this happen so fast? I also started quietly paying attention. The grocery bills had increased by $400 a month. The utilities were up. His sister had asked him for $200 just until her next paycheck, twice in the past month, and I'd seen the Venmo notification both times. He hadn't mentioned either transfer to me. They came from our joint account. I opened our banking app one evening after he'd gone to bed and scrolled back through 30 days of transactions. The transfers totaled $1,400, all to his family members, none of them discussed with me. I sat in the dark of our bedroom for a long time after that, not angry, not yet. Something quieter than anger. Something that felt like clarity beginning to settle, cold and permanent, at the base of my chest. I asked him about it the next morning, kept my voice even factual. He said his mother had needed to pay off a medical bill. His sister needed her car registration. These were small things, he said. I was tracking every dollar like some kind of auditor. I'm tracking it, I said, because no one asked me. It's our money. Yes, and I'm part of the hour, which means these decisions should involve me. You would have said no. He said it plainly, without apology, and they needed help, so I helped them. He had anticipated my objection and circumvented it, not as a mistake, not in a panic, but as a calculated decision that my consent was less important than his preference. I heard that clearly. I don't think he realized how clearly. 3 weeks later, I came home from a client dinner on a Wednesday night to find his mother reorganizing my kitchen. She had taken everything out of the cabinets and arranged it according to a system that made sense to her. My grandmother's ceramic mixing bowls, the ones I'd carried from my family's house in Ohio after my grandmother died, were sitting on the floor next to a donate pile. Those aren't going anywhere, I said. She looked up. The handles are chipped. They're not really useful. They're not here to be useful. Put them back. His mother looked at me with an expression I can only describe as measured patience with an undercurrent of contempt. I'm trying to help. I didn't ask for help with my kitchen. My husband appeared in the doorway. He'd heard the exchange. He looked between us and said, "Can we not do this tonight? She's just organizing." Something broke open in me quietly in a way he couldn't see. Later that night, I told him this wasn't working, that we needed boundaries, a real conversation about how the household was supposed to function, about the money, about my office, about a timeline for when this arrangement would end. He told me I was being unwelcoming, that his mother was trying, that I had always kept score with his family. I have never kept score, I said. I've been patient for 6 years. This isn't about scorekeeping. This is about living in my own home and having a say in what happens in it. You work too much, he said. You're stressed about the new job and you're taking it out on them. He reduced everything, every legitimate complaint, every real boundary I tried to draw, into a symptom of my ambition. The promotion was making me high-strung. The job was making me selfish. If I were less focused on my career, I'd have more patience for the people who mattered. The people who mattered. He said it like that, like I was not one of them. That night, I lay in bed next to him, awake, staring at the ceiling, and I did the kind of quiet accounting that I think a person puts off for as long as possible, because the numbers are too frightening to see. I thought about the down payment on this house, 60% from my savings, a gift from my parents, money I'd earned, and they'd contributed because they believed in us. I thought about the mortgage payments for the past 4 years, how much of that had been my salary in months when his commissions came in low or late. I thought about the MBA I'd paid for myself, the promotions I'd worked for, the financial stability I had built brick by brick while he coasted on what I'd built and called it ours only when it was convenient. I didn't sleep. Instead, at 2 in the morning, I got up and went to the living room and opened my laptop and searched for a name. Jordan Fisk, family law attorney, Austin, Texas. We'd gone to the same MBA program, different years. She'd gone into law after, specialized in family and financial litigation. Fiercest person I had ever met in a seminar room. I'd always liked her. I sent her a message. "Hey, I know it's been a while. I need some advice. Can we talk?" She replied at 6:30 the next morning. I had a feeling I'd hear from you someday. Call me at 9. Jordan's office was in a converted Victorian house near South Congress, all dark wood and shelves stacked with case files. She was small and precise, with reading glasses she wore pushed up on her head like a headband, and a way of listening that made you feel like every word you said was being catalogued for evidence. She let me talk for 40 minutes without interrupting. Then she folded her hands on her desk. "The account transfers," she said. "How much total from joint funds without your consent?" "1,400 so far, probably more I haven't found." "We'll subpoena the records, pull everything." She made a note. "The house, your name's on the deed." "Both names, but my parents gifted 20,000 toward the down payment. I have the wire records." "Good. And your mortgage contributions relative to his over the last 2 years, given his reduced commissions?" "I've been paying about 80%. Jordan looked at me over her glasses with an expression that wasn't quite sympathy and wasn't quite satisfaction. It was something more useful than either. "Here's what I want you to do this week. Open a new account at a bank where you have no existing relationship with your husband. Move your direct deposit there today. Document everything: texts, voicemails, bank notifications. Screenshot the Venmo transfers. Start a log, dated, of every incident that affects your home, your finances, your workspace. And do not tell him any of this yet. Can you do that?" I said yes. "There's one more thing." She held my gaze. "I know you'll want to try to fix this. To have the conversation, to give him a chance. I'm not telling you not to, but I want you to understand something before you do. What you've described isn't a communication problem. It isn't stress. The pattern you're describing, unilateral financial decisions, dismissing your objections, reducing your professional success to a personality flaw, that's a control pattern. It may not feel dramatic. It rarely does from the inside. But it has structure and intention, even when he tells himself it doesn't." I drove home in silence. I didn't cry until I was in my driveway with the garage door closed behind me, and then I cried hard and fast, the way you do when you've been holding something for a very long time and the container finally gives. Then I wiped my face, went inside, said hello to his mother who was watching television on my couch, and went to the bedroom to open a new banking app on my phone. 2 days later, I came home from work to an empty house. His mother and sister had gone shopping. My husband was at a showing. And I did a quiet walkthrough of every room. My office had candles on the windowsill that weren't mine, and a whiteboard on the wall I hadn't agreed to, and a nail hole where a picture had been hung on paint I had specifically chosen, specifically rolled, with my own hands on a Saturday 2 years ago. I stood in the doorway of that room for a long time. Then I took a photo of the nail hole, added it to the folder I'd started labeling documentation. Things shifted 3 weeks later, in a way I had not predicted. My husband came to me with a proposal. He'd framed it carefully, presented it as a financial strategy, a plan for the future. He'd done some research, he said. A financial advisor had talked to him, someone his mother had recommended. If I moved my direct deposit into a new joint account, separate from our existing one, and we consolidated, his mother could manage the household budget. She was meticulous with money, he said. She'd worked for years doing bookkeeping. With my new salary added, if we put every extra dollar toward the mortgage, we could pay off the house 12 years early. Think of the freedom, he said. Think about what that would mean for us. I kept my expression neutral while he talked. When he finished, I asked him one question. Who would have signing authority on this account? He hesitated, just long enough. All of us would, technically, to make the system work. Me, you, Mom, just for day-to-day management. Your mother would have access to my paycheck. It wouldn't be, it's not like that. It's a household account. Would she be able to initiate transfers, withdraw funds? He rubbed the back of his neck. In theory, for household expenses, but I'd be overseeing. You've been overseeing our current account, and I found $1,400 in unauthorized transfers. What would you like me to conclude from that about your oversight? His face darkened. You're twisting this. I'm asking questions. If this is a good plan, the questions should have good answers. He pushed back from the table. This is the problem with you. Everything is a negotiation. Everything has to be your terms. Can't you just trust me? Can't you just believe that I want what's good for our family? Our family includes me, I said quietly. It includes all of us, he snapped. But you've never seen my family as yours. You've just been tolerating them for years, and now you're using this as an excuse to get them out. I haven't said anything about getting them out. You don't have to say it. I can see it. He stood up. There's actually something else while we're talking finances. Mom suggested, just to simplify things, to clean up the deed for tax purposes, that you could quit claim your interest to me temporarily, and then I'd add you back once we refinanced. Just to make the paperwork cleaner while we're consolidating the accounts. I was very quiet for a moment. You want me to sign my ownership of this house over to you. Temporarily. It's a technical thing. I paid 60% of the down payment. My parents gave $20,000 toward this house. My salary has covered the majority of the mortgage for 4 years, and you're asking me to sign away my legal ownership. I paused. Temporarily? When you say it like that. Is there another way to say it? He looked at me, and for just a second I saw something he couldn't quite hide. A frustration, a recalculation. He'd expected me to hesitate, to need reassurance, to eventually be talked into it. The flatness of my response had thrown him. I stood up. I'm going to call my attorney. You have an attorney? Jordan Fisk. I've been talking to her for a few weeks. I picked up my keys from the counter. I need some air. We'll continue this conversation through proper channels. He said my name as I walked out. I heard it. I kept walking. Jordan nearly came out of her chair when I told her about the quitclaim. He asked you to do that during the same conversation where he wanted to put your paycheck under his mother's management. Framed it as estate planning. Just for tax purposes. That's not estate planning. That's trying to strip you of equitable interest in a marital asset while simultaneously increasing your financial contributions to that asset. She was writing rapidly. Tell me you didn't sign anything. I walked out. Perfect. She looked up. Okay. Here's where we are. I'm filing for divorce. I know that's a significant word, but I want you to hear me. You came in 3 weeks ago thinking this was a communication problem. What you just described is financial fraud. Attempted, yes, but premeditated and coordinated, very likely between your husband and his mother. A court will see that very clearly. She walked me through the steps. File for dissolution. Request a temporary orders hearing for exclusive possession of the house and contribution to attorney's fees. Pull financial records from both accounts going back 36 months. Document the quitclaim conversation, including the exact language he used while it was fresh. What about the house? I asked. He'll fight for it. Let him. He can't afford to buy you out on his commissions. He'll have to sell. When we lay out your financial contribution relative to his, and then add the attempted quitclaim and the unauthorized transfers as marital waste, you're not getting 50% of that house. You're getting considerably more. I drove home afterward and sat in the driveway for a long time. The lights were on inside. I could see his mother's silhouette moving in my kitchen. I thought about how strange it is to watch your life from the outside, to see clearly all at once the shape of something you'd been inside of for too long to see the whole. What followed was not easy. Nothing that was true was easy. I moved out on a Wednesday afternoon when he was at a showing and his mother and sister had gone to a yoga class I hadn't known they were attending. I took what was legally and personally mine, My grandmother's mixing bowls, my files, my grandmother's quilt, the succulent I'd been keeping alive on the kitchen windowsill for 3 years. I went to a furnished apartment in South Austin that Jordan had helped me find, month-to-month lease in my name alone. He called 37 times between Wednesday evening and Friday morning. I let every call go to voicemail and forwarded them, unlistened to Jordan. When he showed up at my apartment on Saturday, somehow, with a key from the building manager he'd apparently charmed, I was sitting at my small dining table working on a quarterly report. The door opened and he came in with the energy of a man who had convinced himself this was all still fixable, who had not yet understood that something fundamental had ended. His mother was behind him. His sister came in last, looking around with the expression of someone evaluating a vacation rental. I stood up slowly. I didn't raise my voice. "You need to leave. This is my residence. Your name is not on the lease. If you don't leave in the next 5 minutes, I'm calling the police." "You're calling the cops on your husband." He almost laughed. "You've completely lost it. The building manager gave you access to my apartment without my authorization. I'll be addressing that separately. But right now, all 3 of you need to leave." His mother began moving toward my kitchen, the same gravitational pull toward whatever she could rearrange, claim, impose herself upon. I stepped directly into her path. "Not one step further. You are not welcome in this space. Please leave." I'd installed a small camera by the door the week before, at Jordan's suggestion. The little indicator light blinked steady red. He saw it. The color in his face shifted. "You recorded us?" "I record my front door. It's my apartment." I walked to the side table, picked up a card Jordan had printed for me, held it out. "Any further contact should go through my attorney. Do not come here again. Do not contact me by phone or text. If you have something to say it through her." He wouldn't take the card. I let it fall. His mother said something under her breath as she left. His sister went without looking at me, still on her phone. He stood in the doorway for a moment, and the look on his face was one I won't forget. Not anger, exactly, but a particular bewildered outrage, the expression of a man who has never had anyone refuse to accommodate him and genuinely cannot process what that means. He said, "You're going to regret this." I said nothing. I closed the door. I stood in my quiet apartment alone and let myself shake for exactly 4 minutes. Then I called Jordan and told her what had happened. "The visit was a gift," she said. "It establishes a pattern of intimidation and boundary violation. The camera footage is evidence. I'm filing for a temporary restraining order tomorrow." The temporary orders hearing was 6 weeks later. I wore a gray suit I'd bought the previous fall for a client presentation. Clean, serious, nothing performative about it. Jordan was at the petitioner's table beside me, a closed notebook in front of her and the particular stillness of someone who has done this many times and knows exactly how it will go. His attorney was a man who'd been practicing family law for 20 years and had the look of someone who understood. His client was the weaker hand and was trying to manage the loss. Jordan laid it out cleanly: the income disparity, the unauthorized transfers, the failed quitclaim attempt, the trespass at my apartment, the financial history of the house. She played a recording from the quitclaim conversation, single-party consent, legal in Texas. Jordan had confirmed this with the particular satisfaction of someone who had been waiting for the right moment to deploy it. The judge was a woman in her 50s, careful and fast, with eyes that moved and caught everything. She listened to the recording without expression. His attorney argued that I had abandoned the marital home, that I had been prioritizing my career over my marriage, that the house should remain with my husband who was maintaining it. The judge looked up from her notes. She left, the judge said, because a restraining order had been sought based on her husband's conduct in the home. Would you return to a home where you did not feel safe, counselor? His attorney did not have a good answer to that. The judge awarded temporary exclusive possession of the house, not to either of us, but ordered him to maintain the mortgage payments while the case proceeded, given his choice to remain there. She awarded contribution to my legal fees based on his conduct. She reviewed the quitclaim recording once more. This court finds the conduct documented here, the attempted conveyance of the petitioner's equitable interest in the marital property without disclosure of consequence, to be conduct relevant to the financial proceedings, will address it fully at the asset division hearing. He didn't explode in the courtroom. He sat very still, which in some ways was worse. Afterward, Jordan walked beside me down the marble corridor and said, simply, "Now we let it work." It worked the way real things work, slowly and then all at once. He couldn't sustain the mortgage alone. The market was still soft. His mother's presence wasn't helping his productivity or his focus. By the time the final settlement negotiations began, he was 2 months behind on the mortgage, and his credit was absorbing the hit. Jordan countered his attorney's initial offer, 50-50 split of the net proceeds, with a calculation of my financial contributions, the unauthorized transfers, the value of equity I'd funded. She came in at 68% for me. He pushed back. He didn't have leverage. The recording existed. The bank records existed. The math was on my side. He settled at 65%. His attorney told Jordan he pushed as hard as he could. The house sold in 11 days. My portion of the net proceeds went directly to my new solo account. Jordan called me from her car to tell me when the wire cleared. I was in a meeting at the time. I excused myself, went to the hallway, and stood there for a full minute with my eyes closed, letting the weight of the past 8 months finally lift. Teresa promoted me to director 4 months after that. I didn't text anyone the news from a parking garage. I walked to the window of my office and looked out at downtown Austin for a long time, letting it be real, letting it be just mine. I live alone now, in an apartment with high ceilings and one enormous window that faces east, and I've put my grandmother's mixing bowls on the shelf where I can see them from the couch. I've started cooking again, slowly, the way I did before I stopped doing things just for myself. I have a group of friends I'd let go quiet during the marriage, women I'm rebuilding with now, and a Saturday routine I protect like a professional obligation. His mother, I heard through a mutual friend, had opinions about me for a while. That's all right. I've stopped managing the impressions of people whose respect I was never going to earn on terms I could live with. His sister is figuring out her life. I genuinely hope she does. He sent one email, 8 months after the divorce was finalized, through a personal account Jordan had flagged in the settlement as a protected channel for logistics only. It was brief. He said he'd thought about it. He said he thought he'd been under a lot of pressure and hadn't handled things well. He said he missed what we'd had. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop and went for a run in the late evening light, the kind that turns everything in Austin amber and long-shadowed, the kind that makes even an ordinary Tuesday feel like it means something. I did not reply. There was nothing to say that would be more honest than the silence. The lease on my apartment is up in 3 months. I've been looking at condos in my price range, fully in my price range, with no contingencies, and I found one last week with a second bedroom that I've already decided will be my office, painted the color I want, organized the way I want, a nail in the wall wherever I choose to put one. I put in an offer on Friday morning before work. My agent called me an hour later to tell me it had been accepted. I sat at my desk for a moment, the phone still warm in my hand, and thought about the woman who had stood in an elevator 11 months ago, reading a promotion notification 3 times because it didn't feel real. She'd driven home full of champagne and hope, and the belief that the person waiting for her would match the size of what she'd built. She was wrong about that. But she was right about herself, and it turns out, when you strip everything else away, that's the only thing that actually carries you forward. I signed the purchase agreement at lunch. Used my solo account, my name on the deed, just mine, clean and permanent and entirely earned. I went back to work and ran a quarterly review that afternoon, and I didn't think about him once. There's a moment I keep coming back to, standing in the doorway of my own home office, looking at a nail hole in paint I had rolled on with my own hands, and understanding that the damage wasn't really about the wall. What happened to me didn't happen all at once. That's the thing no one tells you. It happens in the small decisions you excuse, the transfers you don't ask about, the workspace that slowly stops being yours. By the time something is undeniably wrong, you've already been adjusting to it for a long time. You've been making yourself smaller in increments so gradual that you stopped noticing the shrinking. I used to think that being a good partner meant being accommodating, flexible, understanding, and I still believe that, but I learned the hard way that there's a difference between flexibility and erasure. What my husband asked of me in the end wasn't compromise. It was surrender. Surrender of my paycheck, my workspace, my ownership of the home I built, and eventually my right to be consulted about my own life. He framed all of it as family, as love. That's what made it so difficult to name clearly for so long. The quitclaim conversation was when I finally stopped explaining him to myself. Because what he asked me to sign away wasn't just a legal interest in a house. It was the material proof of everything I'd worked for, my parents' faith in me, my years of grinding, my financial discipline while he coasted. And he asked me to hand it over quietly, temporarily, for reasons that didn't hold up to a single direct question. That's not a mistake. That's a plan. Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. Integrity isn't just about how you treat other people. It's about whether you're willing to be honest about what's being done to you. For years, I was so committed to being fair, to giving benefit of the doubt, to not being the kind of woman who keeps score, that I let the score run completely against me. Being ethical with yourself means you don't lie about the pattern just because the truth is inconvenient for someone you love. Jordan used to say, "The facts don't care about your feelings, but they will absolutely protect you if you document them." What she meant was, clear thinking is its own form of self-defense. When I sat across from her and she laid out my financial contribution in columns, I was not angry. I was sharp. I was focused. I understood the situation completely and I knew exactly what I needed to do. That kind of clarity isn't cold. It's survival. It's the thing you build when you stop letting other people define what's reasonable for you. And then you have to actually do the hard thing. You have to move, leave, file, show up to the hearing, change the direct deposit, install the camera. Not once, not dramatically, but in a long series of unglamorous decisions made while you're tired and scared and not entirely sure it's going to work. That's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. That rebuilding yourself isn't a moment, it's a practice. Every day you choose it again. The condo I bought has east-facing windows. My grandmother's mixing bowls are on the shelf. The office is painted the color I picked. None of that happened because things worked out. It happened because I decided, quietly, firmly, and without waiting for permission, that I was worth the effort of fighting for.